measures to ensure certainty and clarity about claims and disbursements. As a result, NSFAS urges all accommodation providers with the 2024 outstanding payments to send their claims to the following dedicated email address: nsfas@nsfas.org.za.
The ANC National Working Committee has made sweeping changes to its provincial structures in Gauteng and KZN. It has removed former provincial secretaries Bheki Mtolo and Tike Nxiza in the newly reconfigured provincial structures. Former ANC KZN Deputy Chairperson Michael Mabuyakulu is set to make a political comeback in the province as a coordinator, while party veteran Jeff Khatewe will be the convener. In Gauteng, Panyazili Sufi survives the chop as he'll now be co-convener of the reconfigured structure with veteran politician Amos Masondo. And former Gauteng Provincial Secretary Hope Papo will be coordinator of the reconfigured provincial structure. And lastly, looking further afield, Lebanese officials have confirmed that the Israeli military has withdrawn from villages in southern Lebanon in line with the ceasefire deal ending its war with Hezbollah. Under the terms of the truce drawn up in November, the IDF was due to pull out by today. The BBC's Hugo Bechega has the details.
As morning broke, residents waited to be allowed by the Lebanese military to return to communities after the Israeli withdrawal. Invading troops, however, are staying at 5 locations along the border indefinitely. The Israeli military says this is needed until the Lebanese military fully implements its side of the deal. The agreement also requires Hezbollah to remove its fighters and weapons from southern Lebanon, where the group has been the dominant force for decades. The permanence of Israeli troops has been criticized by the authorities in Lebanon, a country with a history of Israeli occupation.
Recapping the top story at 1, the official unemployment rate has decreased to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024 from 32.9% in the third quarter. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The giants of French rugby, Bordeaux Butler and Clermont Auvergne, are fighting for a massive victory to cement top 5 positions. This is the top 14, rugby the French way. Catch the huge contest between Bordeaux Union Butler and Clermont Auvergne on Sunday, 23 February at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
a vow. For better or for worse, I can't believe you let me down. But the proof's in the way it hurts. For months on end I've had my doubts, denying every tear. I wish this would be over now, but I know that I still need you here. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. You've been so unavailable. Now sadly I know why. Your heart is unobtainable, even though God knows you kept mine. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. I have loved you for many years. Maybe I am just not enough. You've made me realize my deepest fear by lying and tearing us up. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. You say I'm crazy, 'cause you don't think I know what you've done. But when you call me baby, I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one.
Yes. There's something about Sam Smith. He definitely makes heartbreak sound a little bit upbeat in all of his projects. That was Sam Smith coming through with I'm Not the Only One. And this was taken from his debut album, In the Lonely Hour. And this was the third release from that album, if I'm not mistaken, alongside Stay With Me, which has become one of his most noted songs. And that is how we kick off the show today. We thought, casting our eyes out at the weather, it's still wet, still gloomy, still very much raining in most parts of the country. And we thought, well, let's just start off on a nice mellow note with Sam Smith. Does anyone make heartbreak sound better than he does? Okay, there's the school that says Adele, and I also agree with that. We've got lots coming up on the show today. Hope you are having an okay day thus far. We've got a lot of conversation headed your way. And of course, we begin the show by continuing the conversation around those really just heartbreaking, appalling videos that we saw depicting the situation at Club Zanzu in Pretoria. And we're going to be chatting to the Human Rights Commission about, the possible human rights violations and the legal implications for the owners, but as well as the legal recourse for the 3 young gentlemen that were captured in the video and that have subsequently come forward to present themselves to SAPS as the victims. So we're going to rope in a few voices on this conversation as well. We're also going to be touching base with the Secretary General of Not In My Name and get their perspective on this. This has been an ongoing conversation since yesterday. We first became alerted to the videos whilst we were on air yesterday. And then obviously, throughout the course of last night and this morning, it's formed the greater part of conversation across various mediums and channels. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on if you want to weigh in on the situation that we saw via footage coming out from the former bodyguard, from what we understand, former bouncer from Club Zanzu, Juan Pablo, who took to social media to share that footage and expose the events that were going on in the establishment. You are more than welcome to send us a voice note on that on 061-410-4107, or you can give us a live call and share your perspective and your opinion on 086-000-2032. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll be right back.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
During Ford's Blue Sky offers, you can get a new Ford Territory Ambiente from just $6,199 per month, including our optional service plan. Only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime list 5.25%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
V up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra featuring integrated Galaxy AI. Get it on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for only 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 Rand, 5 Dawa, on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. Before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Jazz. Let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Spillion's life and how it can change ours as well. In just one day.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So what we know so far, after that video footage came out on social media, showing the horrendous incidents that had taken place at Club Zanzu in Pretoria, is that the spokesperson for the South African Police Services has been doing the rounds, the media rounds today, just updating on some information that is pertinent to the now opened case against the proprietors and owners of Club Zanzu. So what we know is that 3 young men have come forward who identified themselves as patrons of the establishment, and they were the young men that were featured in the video. And we know that the circumstances surrounding that, as they have articulated to the SAPS, is that they were celebrating their matric results. They are aged between 18 and 22, and they told the SAPS that they were really ashamed and embarrassed at the time, and hence they didn't come forward until these videos then surfaced yesterday. We also know that the incident happened around about 3 years ago, from what I understand. But that's just to paint the context now of, because I know a lot of people were wanting to know the circumstances and the identity of the young men, and sort of the story behind who they were. So that's what we know has been shared by the SAPS at the moment. And then we thought that we would then catch up with the Gauteng Provincial Manager for the South African Human Rights Commission, as well as the Secretary General of Not In My Name, the organization organization, Not In My Name, to really have a conversation around, that disturbing visual that we saw circulating on social media, as well as Wendy Alberts, who's going to be joining us. And Wendy is the CEO of the Restaurants Association of South Africa. Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you so much for taking the time. So those shocking videos from Pretoria's Zanzu nightclub have triggered a lot of national outrage, and it's raised really critical concerns about human rights violations, security protocols, legal accountability, as well as just the monitoring of nightclub establishments in the country. And I think perhaps we will start by just understanding further the context of what we saw in those videos, by way of, there's been a lot of conversation around, what would potentially be the criminal charge that has been laid. And I think we'll begin with the South African Human Rights Commission. How are you doing this afternoon, Zamantung Mbegi? So grateful that you could join us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Help us understand. We obviously saw those triggering visuals, the assault, the violation of those young men in that video. Break down to us the nature of the alleged assaults. As what are we looking at here from a human rights violation and as well as a legal violation?
I think my colleagues will agree that at first what we are seeing is a sexual offense. I think that's something that has been missing a lot in the discourse, that what we are looking at is what we would define in South Africa as a sexual offense, how you understand penetration, how you understand rape, and how the legal reform in defining rape goes as far as to include this incident. So we're not just talking about an incident where there's just assault, as you would just think of assault or assault GBH. We're looking at a sexual offense. And it is for that reason that when we really unpack and we look at this story, that we should look at this through that lens as well, that we are looking at victims of a sexual offense. We're looking at assault. We are looking, to some extent, that will be determined by the NPA, whether we're also looking at an attempted murder, looking at how maybe there's additional footage besides this one that was provided on social media. We're looking at privacy rights. We're looking at whether they consented for this material to be distributed, the victims. So there's a lot of things that we really have to unpack, not just about what we are seeing, but also the rights of the people who are affected, their rights to privacy, as you earlier alluded.
Yeah. And let's talk about also from, the work that the Human Rights Commission does in the country. What case would you have to present on behalf of these young gentlemen if you were to take up this matter? And is this something that you would be taking up?
Definitely. The first thing, obviously, in exercising or making sure that their rights are protected, their right to bodily integrity, is to make sure that SAPS does what they're supposed to be doing, as they are doing now, that they are investigating all of the people and the due process is being done. There's obviously the infringement that we have of the rights by the so-called private security officers, but also as the establishment. When something happens in your business, you are liable in law. There's a question of the damages when an employee of yours, and that is something that has to be determined, goes and does some conduct. Are you vicariously liable for that damage that has been done or the injuries that have been sustained? So, and then there's also one that we're not talking about, the further perpetuation or distribution of this video on the social media platforms. And that is what we are saying, that members of the public, this is a sexual offense. Should we really be, we should be talking about it, definitely, but should we be distributing it, the rights of children who are seeing this material, etc.? So we're trying to balance all of that.
And it seems like quite the balancing act indeed. And perhaps let's bring in here as well Temba Masango, who's the Secretary General of Not In My Name, because your organization works a lot in the arena of GBV and sexual violence as it pertains to both men and women. From your perspective, what would be of the biggest concern for you as an organization?
Good afternoon to you, colleagues, and to the listeners. What is very important here is for us to understand that 5 young boys were dehumanized. They were attacked. They were violently emasculated on that day. And whether it was for a bill, whether it was for stolen phones, whatever the case may be, no human being deserves to be treated like that. So the horror and the trauma that they've gone through for the past 2 years, since 2023, and understandably, it could be one of the reasons why they said, listen, guys, let's keep this amongst ourselves and not say anything about it, because it's such a embarrassing, dehumanizing thing to go through, you know. But now the focus needs to change in one, getting justice for them, making sure that the perpetrators that have committed this heinous crime are brought to book and are dealt with venomously. And then, moreover, that the establishment that is Zanzibar in this situation needs to take accountability with regards to the rogue element that they hired. Did they do cross-checks? Did they do background checks on these people? Did the owners know or not? And whether they did know or not, vicariously they are responsible because it is their establishment. And then, furthermore, we need to look at the general culture of nightlife in South Africa around student areas, particularly like Hatfield, Bram, and so on, because it's in a university district. And what has happened there is clearly not the first time such a thing has happened, and not the only people that it's happened to. You're seeing now on social media other people coming out and saying, this happened to me, and so on.
Yeah.
And most of all, for me, I want to particularly speak to men and to young men, particularly right now on this platform, to say, if such a heinous crime does happen to you, it's very important, guys, to speak up timelessly, very quickly, so that, one, you can get the necessary justice for you. Two, you can get the necessary assistance in terms of getting back to your health, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and otherwise, because we know the old saying that says, hurt people, and we don't want them to grow up to be men who are going to bleed on other people for things that happen to them in a dark, private space, as it were.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point as well, Temba, because, a lot of organizations, particularly those who speak on behalf of males, have been talking about that very fact, the emotional scarring, the depth of the emotional and psychological scarring for these young men who've had to deal with this on their own. And as they've expressed to, the relevant representatives from the South African police services, that they were embarrassed and ashamed, and hence they didn't come forward and present themselves, at the nearest police station and lay charges.
And understandably so. I was at the police station yesterday, and we had a long conversation also with the general and the, law enforcement powers there, and also explaining that fact that it's definitely understandable. It's one of embarrassment, it's one of shame, confusion, it's hurt, it's pain. So, understandably so.
Yeah.
This thing got leaked via this person, Pablo. And now is the time to actually deal with this issue, and it's an opportunity for them to get the healing that they deserve and the justice that they deserve. And I'm hoping that the other two boys and their cousins, so they will come up soon and be able to put their statement And then I hope that the 8 guys that the police are on track to arrest today do get arrested. And then the establishment needs to be closed down so that this issue can be properly ventilated in a court of law. So we understand what happened. And then there needs to be laws and, T's that need to be crossed and I's that need to be dotted with regards to nightlife, particularly around the Hatfield precinct. I'm in Hatfield right now, and students all over the place. It's young people who come from far from different areas of the country to come and study. And when abuse happens to them, it's sometimes very difficult for them to speak up against it because, number one, you don't have the protection of family around you. The friends that you have are new around you. And generally people don't trust the police for obvious reasons. So we want to say that, these clubs, not just dances, need to be looked into. The culture of nightlife in these areas needs to be really audited, checked, and vetted properly so that we don't have these atrocities happening.
Absolutely. I want to take a quick pause and get ready for the headline news, but our WhatsApp is open on 061-410-4107. And then when we come back on the other side, we'll also hear from Wendy Alberts, who's the CEO of the Restaurants Association of South Africa, around perhaps some of the checks and balances, around nightlife establishments in the country, and considering who are their patrons. Primarily, their patrons are young, vulnerable students. So what kinds of checks and balances are being deployed in this specific area of entertainment in order to ensure that everything is above board and that establishments and owners and proprietors really are people who are following the letter of the law so that we don't see more cases like this coming to the light. The news is coming up with Eva Chipa.
Thanks, Bridget. In your news making headlines for this hour, the official unemployment rate has decreased to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024 from 32.9% in the third quarter. In other news, the city of Tshwane says the Zanzu nightclub in Pretoria will remain closed while they investigate compliance. This after a 2023 video surfaced of young men being assaulted and forced to perform sexual acts. And lastly, looking further afield, Vietnam's parliament has overwhelmingly approved a reform plan to reduce the government size by 20%. It's part of a bid to improve efficiency. I'll be back at the top of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
I mean, just the thought of a night out ending up with you being held against your will, being bound and tied up naked on a floor in a back room of an establishment, being waterboarded, being made to really just perform the most heinous of sexual acts on yourself. It's unimaginable. It's just something that should not even be fathomable. Wendy, and let's jump you in here. Wendy Alberts, who's the CEO of the Restaurant Association of South Africa. This is beyond disturbing.
No, absolutely. I mean, I cannot believe that we have people in this world that are capable of such horrific acts as a form of discipline.
Yeah.
And that there wasn't other recourses that they could have turned to have properly chatted to these young boys about the incident that may have taken place that night. But what's even more concerning is that this time frame has gone on for so long without anybody speaking out about it until the videos went viral.
Yeah. Let's talk around, the issues of compliance, because a lot of people have been bringing up that as a talking point that, the nightlife industry, for the large part of it in the country, goes unchecked and unregulated.
Look, what we need to first of all set straight is that there's a difference between the restaurant industry and obviously nightlife, nightclubs, etc. And when I took it upon myself to call a number of the establishment owners and have a discussion with them, the story that is circulating at this point in time for them was so far-fetched and so unbelievable that they could not even comprehend that such indecent acts took place in their businesses or in the industry or in their segment of the industry. They were horrified and disturbed to have learned that there are people that are capable of being able to do these torturous acts to young people. And you're absolutely right. You know, the nightlife is an exciting industry. It is a place where you should be allowed to go and feel safe, that there is security, that it's been properly vetted, and that you can go out with your friends and, you know, you can get out a little bit out of hand, and which the youngsters tend to do, behave a little bit irresponsibly, but yet that they're in a safe environment, that there are people that have their best interests at heart. And I think this is what it goes down to, is that these establishments always need to ensure that the safety of their guests is always their highest priority, as in all other culture within hospitality.
And
they are.
And understanding that this does not fall in the ambient of the Restaurant Association of South Africa, but it's a peripheral industry that runs in tandem, right? And so for a large majority of South Africans, we club everything all under sort of one basket. What needs to be done to regulate? What needs to be done to regulate the nightlife industry, particularly the clubs in the country? Because this is not unique to Joburg. You know, if we had to have callers, young people from Cape Town, they'll tell us the same thing. Young people in Gqeberha, in Durban, they'll tell us the same thing. It's not a unique circumstance. And yes, we're not brandishing every nightclub owner under the same brush, because there are some very ethical operators in the industry. There are people who put their patrons first and who ensure their safety and security. But for the large majority, this industry is unregulated. It goes unchecked. It's often associated with gangsterism, criminal elements, unscrupulous police officials. What needs to happen in this case?
I think if you unpack this conversation further, one also has to include these rave festivals or these open-air festivals or these party festivals where they encourage these youngsters to go to, where there isn't authorities or regulation that surrounds those activities. And I think it's in the lower end of the market that perhaps where it's not regulated or there isn't the proper licensing or proper effect for the law, where these incidences could be more susceptible. And again, we always encourage people to go to establishments that have the necessary protocols, that are registered with the law, that have their necessary licensing, that have their entertainment and music licenses, and that also has a reputation for a place where people can go to that feel safe and where enjoyment will not land up in torturous situations like this. There are laws and there are legislation and regulations that govern the nightlife in South Africa. And it's very important that establishments need to adhere to that.
Yeah. Zamantungwa, from a Human Rights Commission perspective, I mean, is this a conversation by way of compliance and regulation to govern and oversee the nightlife industry, particularly nightclubs and sort of the night entertainment industry? Is this a conversation that perhaps now should be held with the utmost urgency to say, well, what are the regulations and the compliance legislation around these places? And, what do owners need to meet? And if they're not meeting them, what are the circumstances? It can't be just enough to revoke someone's liquor license, because they'll go down the road and open another establishment.
Definitely, there are rules that regulate, maybe not directly like legislation relating to nightlife, but there's laws that regulate how many people should be there, how old these people should be there, who are there. I think from your opening statement, you said, for instance, that these were matric students at the time. Were they at the right age? And I'm not saying that because they were they ended up being victims, but I'm just saying about the regulation of how children access alcohol at that time. I think that laws and systems and every crisis in our country, whether we were talking about food poisoning, every process or every crisis is an opportunity for us to review the laws as they become applicable, but also to update them as and when things have developed. The issue here, for instance, is the issue of private security, or how we understand the private security sector, should they be searching people in the first place in the manner that they did? Are they allowed to touch a patron, or in instances like that, should the South African Police Services be contacted? We know time and time again that we are faced with these situations where private securities sometimes go over what they are mandated to do in terms of the act. But most importantly, were these people bouncers or private security? Were they registered and regulated and underwent the regulation, the training that they're supposed to be doing under FIRA? So there's a lot of things that we have to look at, but all of these are well tied with the protections that we have when we go into a private establishment, be it a nightclub, be it a restaurant. All of these laws come to play.
You know what I think is so glaringly obvious for me in this conversation as we track it throughout the various mediums that are having it is that, firstly, from the establishment and the statement that they have issued out, there seems to be a shift in focus where the blame is solely being put on the bouncers that are in the video. The establishment is almost saying that, you know, we found out this incident, we saw the video, we changed the security company, we got another security company, those guys are not it. So they're almost distancing themselves from any responsibility. But we also, all of us, as we sit listening to these conversations, have been to a nightclub or two in our lifetimes, and probably you're still in a nightclub era of your life. So you also know that 9 out of 10 nightclubs, wherever you go in the country, it's not security companies that have been vetted and that are registered. It's big, brawly, strappy, intimidating gentlemen that are put at those doors. Oftentimes, they have no protocols and no way of dealing with people. Public management or crowd management is not something that they are apt at doing. What I'm trying to drive at here is, let's not dance around as a society around the issue of knowing that by and large, nightclubs, when we talk unchecked, unregulated, this is what we mean. We mean that there is a lot of criminality that happens in this space, and it's gone overlooked for such a long time that even service providers who provide services like security are oftentimes not legitimate security companies.
Yes, that's why I'm saying that the question of all of these establishments and who comes in, who goes out, that has to become the liability, and if you remember my earlier point, of the owner. So the owner cannot shift. This happened in his on his territory, whether they were his employees or not. The question of how liable he is, or vicariously liable he is, in terms of law, is very, very important. Something can't happen in your home or your business premises, and then you say, oops, my bad, I didn't know anything about it. There's also the glaring issue that this happened in 2023.
Yeah.
Perhaps these children were still minors at the time. Why would they not report? How come there are still 75 videos that could put that up with somebody that have such graphic material, but these need to be brought forward to the South African Police Services. But I fully agree with you. Something cannot happen in your establishment where you are supposed to have control, and then you say, oops, I didn't know it happened based on somebody outside.
Yeah.
You hired those people. You had a contract with them, whether they're private security or not. So when we hold them accountable, you as the employer and the owner, you have got the greater onus.
Yeah. Themba, your perspective on this, because also I think the disturbing part is one of the owners that has been mentioned, the alleged owners, I guess we have to say alleged, the alleged owners in this instance, one Mr. Stefan Cohen. If you're a resident of Johannesburg, at some point you've stepped into one of his many establishments. He's one of the probably top 3, top 5 nightlife operators in this city and in Cape Town. So his name is very familiar in the space. This is not the first time his establishments have been put out on social media and been held to account for how, just how inhumanely they've treated people. There was that incident at Babel just less than a year ago.
That's true. And I think also we just need to be fair with regards to this situation. He's released a statement saying that, look, he doesn't own Zanzu, and I've checked with the CIPC. Definitely, he is not there.
Okay.
The two guys that do own it is Malachi and Leo, who I'm trying to get a hold of. And I was supposed to actually be in a meeting with him now at 12:30, but he did not honor it. However, that being said, the issue is just the general culture around nightlife.
Yeah.
Whether it's Babel, whether it's Zamzing, whether it's Taboo, whether it's wherever. You are spot on to say that many a times the people that man the doors and the security there, 9 out of 10 times foreign nationals who are undocumented, who've never been through training of knowing how to deal with crowds, drunk young people who are just going wild on a night. And there are ways to deal with such situations, and ultimately the establishment needs to take accountability for that, because they're the ones that pay these people, and they know that should they go for a properly vetted company, obviously it's going to take up costs and overheads and so on. So they're going through the shortcut, but with shortcuts, this is the situation that you end up in. And that's why you need to take responsibility. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. You are the people that needs to take the responsibility of this. And that is why we are calling for the establishment to be closed until such time this issue has been properly ventilated and all the team across them, every single I is dotted. And because if we don't, radically and change the culture by making radical decisions such as saying that we're going to close this thing down, it's not going to work. It's going to continue. Everyone's going to say tomorrow, I'm sorry, I was late, it was the bouncers, and then we're going to get new bouncers. No, unfortunately, in this situation, you are ultimately responsible, and you need to be called to book.
Absolutely. And I take your point of correction from the point of a registration of the operations at CIPC, that this particular establishment is registered with the names of the other two gentlemen. What I also would like clarity on, because, and maybe not from you, but as this conversation continues to unfold, is understanding how club operations go at times. I could register a club, but Temba could be my silent business partner in it. And I know that they on his social media handles, he has put Zanzu as one of the places, the spots that he owns in whatever capacity, or in business or partnership or whatever it is. I think what I'm driving at is there seems to also be this kicking of the ball amongst the different players at that club, because nobody wants to put their hand up and say, in fact, the buck stops with me. I'm the responsible one. Whether I'm the manager that night, whether I'm the manager of operations, whether I'm the owner registered at CIPC, the buck ends with me.
You're definitely right. There was a point in time where he was actually a silent partner. And many times what you do find is that a lot of these guys, especially our white counterparts, want to be silent because of the obvious reason that the demographic of the area is predominantly young, black, and you want to make sure that you've got people in the front that are seen as part of the demographic, so that it seemed to be cool and to be the place to be at, and so on. So 100% I take that point as it's valid, because it's true. Cohen at one point had Zanzibar as one of the places where he's invested in, and he can't just run away because he's not at the CIPC. He needs to clarify that and be clear to take the public into his confidence and say this is the actuality of what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's happening all over South Africa, unfortunately.
Yeah. Where to, Temba, from here for these young gentlemen? Where to for these young cousins, and how do we begin to support and ensure that they get the justice that they deserve, and hopefully sooner rather than later?
So I think the most important right now is for them to feel supported, get given the necessary space, and let them work with clear professionals in the space. So we shouldn't have every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanting to interview them, speak to them, and wanting to help and so on. I think so far I really must commend the general of the police in Gauteng, and they've pulled up all the stops and the necessary resources to say, guys, this is available to you, and let professionals help you and deal with you. One thing they do need right now is space, but also in getting that space, what we as a community, as South Africans, need to do is stand up with one loud voice and demand justice. Keep our pressure on the police as well, to make sure that this case isn't one of those cases where, for 1 week it's big and it's all newsworthy and then everybody is shouting about it, and next week there's another case happening in South Africa.
Yeah.
We need to keep our fingers on the pulse until justice is served, and we need to make sure that a place like Zanzu does not operate as it is. It cannot be business as usual. So we are on the ground. We're currently in Hatfield as well. And fortunately, we operate, our offices are in Hatfield. We operate in the area. And we are mobilizing other progressive forces to say, let's genuinely deal with this. It shouldn't be about political point scoring. It shouldn't be about, being seen or heard. It should really be about changing the nightlife culture in and around these areas in our country.
Absolutely.
Starting with Hatfield, making sure that young people are aware of the risks of enjoying your nightlife. No one's saying don't enjoy it, but there are risks. There needs to be a clear awareness campaign. There needs to be responsibility by businesses in and around this area to actually come together and support awareness campaigns around nightlife when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to violence, when it comes to policing. We need to make sure that the police are also taking account for not being there, for taking it easy, for some police actually taking bribes where places are supposed to close at 2 a.m. and at 3 a.m. people are still strolling in. There needs to be clear, the health hazards that happen in nightclubs. You can see some of the places inside. So there needs to be an overall of the system so that we can make sure that ultimately the young people, our children, ourselves who still club are safe.
Yeah. Themba, thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation. Wendy Alberts, I want to give you just the last bite in a minute. What would be your suggestion as a starting point for tighter regulations around this industry? Just based on the work that you do, because it's not enough to simply close a Zanzu. If the owners are not blacklisted, if they found culpable or guilty of some kind of criminal charges, there needs to be harsher punishment that ensures that the industry does turn around and we see more ethical owners in the nightclub space.
Absolutely. The nightclub space is really an environment for young, vulnerable adults who often don't have enough life experience to really make an informed decision of whether or not they're being violated at that time. And it's an exciting place to go into for them to be able to move into this independent space, for them to have a good party. And coupled with lots of alcohol and other substances that sometimes do take place in these environments, it lends into having bad judgment. And I think it's important for these establishments to have validated security companies who have the best interests of these young people at heart, who provide safe environments for them to be able to socialize and party in, and to ensure that their safety is always a priority.
Yeah.
And I think that moving forward is really something that they'll need to take heart to. And there is obviously the recourse with the liquor license and the reporting of the infringements on the liquor license. Should any of these establishments not be in compliance, and if they're in contravention of that, there are reporting structures. And I'd love to hear the Gauteng Liquor Board's comments on this matter as well, as we turn forward to understand their position on the infringement that took place here.
Yeah. Wendy Alberts, thank you so much for the time. And Wendy is the CEO of the Restaurant Association of South Africa, alongside Themba Masangu, the Secretary General of Not In My Name, and Zamantungwa Mbeki, who is, of course, with the South African Human Rights Commission, the Gauteng Division.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man. Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
Hey neighbor, what happened to you last night? We were vibing, watching the game, and then our team scored, and the next thing you were gone.
Askies, I missed the goal. You know, just before our team scored, Eskom came and then our electricity was disconnected.
Yo, so much drama. What happened?
We got a fine for buying electricity tokens from an illegal vendor.
And then your fancy orange jumpsuit?
Oh, just in case I get arrested for not paying the fine, Pela.
Ungathatha chance. Buy your electricity legally. Stop buying electricity from illegal vendors and tampering with electricity meters.
In the morning, as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady, and you are my man.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
So a quick catch-up with Lisa Borbett before we get into the top of the hour news. Lisa is an actress and a comedian, and we're looking at the award-winning... why are you laughing? Are you not an award-winning comedy duo? How are you, Lisa?
It just sounds funny.
Are you good?
I'm so good. How are you, Bridget?
I'm fabulous. Okay, let's talk Mr. and Mrs. Normal. Tell us about this radical comedy show.
So basically, it's just looking at what is normal nowadays, because it feels like everything is just gone wacko, and we just looking at life and saying, what's happened? You know, what's normal nowadays? Was anything ever really normal? You know, that kind of thing. Because people say, they talk about, they.
Yes.
They say. And we're like, who they? You know, who makes these rules, that we have to follow?
Okay. And this is a two-hander, obviously, duh. Let's talk about the show's musical component as well, and how it sort of adds to the whole comedic experience for the evening.
So It's my husband and I, Aaron McElroy and myself, Lisa, and we do these comedy shows. We've been doing them for very long, for as long as we can remember. And they are always musical comedies and very character-driven. So we have our kind of stock characters that we use a lot of, like a married husband and wife team called Bruce and Charmaine. And Charmaine is just, very bossy, and Bruce is very henpecked. And, she kind of thinks that he can't get anything right. And meanwhile, he actually knows what's going on. So they kind of stock characters, and we put all the characters that we play in different situations. So that's how we kind of describe our comedy. It's not really stand-up.
Yeah.
It's more character-based. And we always find songs that can move along the storyline, or a song that adds to the comedy. Sometimes we just do a normal song in a funny way. We change the lyrics of the song. And also, we find that having music just adds so much more of a vibe to the actual experience of the show, instead of just listening to spoken words,
Absolutely. Now, tell me this, Lisa. Do you think that laughter really can be a form of therapy? And folks who come out to see your productions, like Mr. and Mrs. Normal, perhaps could be sitting in that audience and suddenly they have, just a cathartic experience.
Well, I promise you, that is what we hope for. We always say that it's a laughter therapy. It's cheaper than normal therapy. And we really do believe that if you look at life, through that comedic lens, it can be so healing, because you actually look at some things and you go, oh my gosh, am I going mad? Is it just me, or is this crazy? And then you realize it's just crazy, and you can actually laugh at yourself, laugh at life, laugh at your partner, and it's very disarming. Laughter, you can actually deal with some real issues. That's why comedians are so successful, because I think they really, they hold up life to everyone, and the way they approach it, people laugh and they're like, that is so hilarious.
Absolutely.
Anyway, my husband is like, he is right here. He wants to add something. No, he's telling me what to say. Hold on.
I literally have 20 seconds because I have to go into the headline news.
20 seconds. Can you just believe that I was trying to tell us something that is not true? All I was going to say is that we relate to stuff through comedy that we wouldn't relate to elsewhere. But we look forward to seeing you in Cape Town. Thank you.
Awesome. And I guess this is why they work so well together. The award-winning duo is taking to stage once again for Mr. and Mrs. Normal. That was Lisa Bobbitt and, of course, her husband, Aaron, coming through. You can get your tickets at Quicket, and the performances are opening from the 26th of February and going through until the 1st of March. It's 2 o'clock on the dot. And by way of a reminder, remember that essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. Simply SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Thanks, Bridget. Top stories for this hour. Unemployment rate sees a decrease, and Vietnam to reduce the government size by 20%. Good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipam. The official unemployment rate has decreased to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024 from 32.9% in the third quarter. According to Stats SA, employment gains were observed in the formal sector, the informal sector and private households, while the agricultural sector employment decreased by 11,000 in the same period. Notando Magudulela has more.
On a year-on-year basis, Stats SA quarterly labor force survey shows that total employment increased by 2.1% in the fourth quarter of 2024. It also shows that on a year-on-year basis, employment gains were mainly driven by elementary occupations, craft and related trade, and clerical occupations, while loss in employment were recorded among professionals, technician and domestic worker occupations.
The city of Tshwane says the Zanzu nightclub in Pretoria will remain closed while they investigate compliance. This after a 2023 video surfaced of young men being assaulted and forced to perform sexual acts. Police have cordoned off the nightclub. 3 victims have opened a case of alleged assault and sexual abuse, and a manhunt for at least 8 suspects has been launched. Tshwane MMC for Health, Tsogofatso Mashabela, says they will be going to similar establishments to see if they have licenses.
We need to do a bylaw enforcement to check if all those premises, including Zanzu, is it compliant with our law enforcement operations. But we have not yet been exposed to the owners, because we need this to be a Human Rights Commission incident, and we want it to be a standard norm that there's no lawlessness in this city. It will never open until we are satisfied with the engagements.
In other news, the Western Cape government says it welcomes measures announced by the National Department of Health to ensure that HIV/AIDS services and treatment can continue uninterrupted. This follows the 90-day suspension of some foreign aid by the US. The measures include the implementation of a 6-month antiretroviral treatment dispensation and a 28-day late collection allowance for clients refilling their ARTs. The Provincial Minister for Health and Wellness, Mireille Vangelville, says this will reduce pressure on both clients and clinics.
The funds received from the USAID and PEPFAR have been vital in the fight against the HIV/AIDS epidemic and TB. Without urgent action as a sector, we could face losing some of the gains made in our fight. We need a comprehensive and sustainable strategy that protects provincial budgets while filling the gap left behind, so that the progress South Africa has made to treat and manage HIV/AIDS and TB can continue.
The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has temporarily closed its doors due to a power outage in the CBD. This is the second court in the Gauteng division that has had to temporarily cease operations. This follows last week the division's Johannesburg building faced water challenges due to water shortages in the area. In a statement, the Office of the Chief Justice says affected parties will be contacted regarding alternative arrangements for all matters scheduled on the court roll for the day. And lastly, looking further afield, Vietnam's parliament has overwhelmingly approved a reform plan to reduce the government size by 20%. It's part of a bid to improve efficiency. The BBC's Celia Hudson has more.
Vietnam's top communist leader, To Lum, has called the country's bureaucratic government the bottleneck of bottlenecks. Now he's pushed forward the boldest reforms in a generation. 5 ministries and 4 state agencies will be abolished, along with 5 state television channels. The restructuring will affect 100,000 government jobs.
Recapping the top story for this hour, the official unemployment rate has decreased to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024 from 32.9%. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by OUTsurance Essential. And you can get yourself a quote today by simply SMSing car to 43187. Now, 47-year-old Abner loves OUTsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. For his 2006 Opel Corsa Utility 1.4, he only pays 253 rand a month. With OUTsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater that you want to use. And you can top this up with motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with OUTsurance Essential for unfinanced cars that are older than 5 years old and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. Remember that OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP, and T's and C's do apply.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust Outsurance.
We in the eye care industry, we're saving over 1,200 rand a month. To all the business owners, you've got nothing to lose by giving Outsurance a chance to quote on your business insurance. It's true to say that you always get something out with Outsurance.
For your business insurance, contact Outsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Time's what you make of it. Energy, spend it wise. Chasing and running, it's so consuming. Oh, won't you rain on me? Go, flow, give me energy, magic. 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 Magic, magic, magic. I've no fear for the rain no more. I welcome the purity, so let it pour. After the rain, I feel reborn. I dance in the spaces open up once more. So I let it flow, let it go, flow. Give me energy, magic. 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 Shower me with your holy water. Cleanse away, wash away, burn disease. Show me the way, let me be like water. Flowing, going like the river deep. Go, flow, give me energy, magic. 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 Magic.
We thought it's only right. We thought it's only right that we play the new one from Sabina Maji, translating to rain. If I recall from our conversation, not rain, water. water. Translating to water. And if I recall from our conversation, it translates to water in 3 various languages. One of which being Japanese, and I think the other one was Swahili, if I'm not mistaken. Pardon me. That was Mpho Sabina coming through with my It's just gone 10 past 10 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. No doubt you have seen the news reports coming out of KZN right now in recent weeks that we've experienced a significant outbreak of hand, foot, and mouth disease, particularly affecting children in KwaZulu-Natal. And there's been a few schools that have been hit hard with this breakout. And so we thought it only right to talk to Dr. Sophia Uma, who is a medical officer at the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, just to get a grasp around the situation as well as what we are dealing with here. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Sophia. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for the conversation and the time this afternoon. We appreciate it. Let's get some sort of clarity and explanation as to what is hand, foot, and mouth disease. And this is, from what I heard from a briefing with the Department of Health and Education this morning, there's also a distinction between hand, foot, and mouth disease.
Sure. Yes, Bridget, you're correct. So hand, foot, and mouth disease, firstly, is a fairly common. It's a viral infection, and it mainly affects infants and children. And hand, foot, and mouth disease is caused by a group of viruses. And foot and mouth disease is actually a disease of cattle, and it does not affect humans at all. So that's the distinction between the 2 different viruses and the 2 different diseases.
I see. And with hand, foot, and mouth disease, as you just stated, fairly common, affecting children. And this is not something that can be transmitted from animal to children. This is a viral disease that children get that has nothing to do with their contact with animals.
That's correct, Bridget. So the foot and mouth or foot and hoof disease that cattle get is not transmissible to humans. So hand, foot, and mouth disease, which is a viral infection, is spread from person to person. So the children or even adults who are carriers are passing it around themselves in the community. And the ways that it's spread is just like other viral infections. It could be droplets, so sneezing, coughing. Another main route of transmission is the fecal-oral route. So in our creches or daycare centers, caregivers might be helping an infected baby with a nappy change and haven't washed their hands before they've gone on to help another child with food preparation or just assisting them. So those are the routes of transmission of hand, foot, and mouth disease that are affecting the children in KZN.
I see. Now, do we have a handle as yet as to what sort of led, and I guess maybe it's because of what you've just explained of how it's transmitted,
Yes.
What's led to this outbreak in KZN?
So hand, foot, and mouth disease has been reported, and it's reported worldwide. It's a common virus, and it does have sort of clusters of cases, and KZN has reported clusters of cases in previous years. It's a seasonal virus, just like you get an influenza or a common cold. And it's usually your autumn and summer months where we have these increase in cases. So again, it's a common virus. It has been in circulation. There are seasonal outbreaks. But what we do need to remember is that it is a self-limiting virus, which means that within 7 to 10 days, all the symptoms should have gone away. And it's generally mild.
Okay, so you say it's self-limiting and it's generally mild, and that means that, how concerned should parents be right now? Because I also heard in the briefing this morning that a lot of parents, in KZN and particularly in the affected areas and schools, have been pulling their children out of school, and I guess one can understand the sort of the anxiety and the hesitation to send your child to school if there is an outbreak.
No, of course. So I think community firstly, we shouldn't panic. I think education is actually vital and key in this instance. So I think disseminating correct information and knowing about the disease, that it is a commonly circulating disease. It's common in children, not so common in adults and older children because we've probably been exposed to it and have gained immunity to it. So in terms of the parents panicking and pulling children out of school, quarantine is not mandated for hand, foot, and mouth disease. Having said that, if you're seeing a pupil or your child is not well, keeping them at home would be a good idea just to not to sort of infect others around them. Having said that, if they're well, they're not symptomatic, they're able to manage a school day, we just need to promote infection prevention control strategies. And that sounds like a big word, Bridget, but it's actually proper hand washing. So hand washing with soap and water under a tap for longer than 20 seconds, not a quick sort of put your hand under the tap and then remove it.
Yeah.
Coughing, sneezing into your elbow, not into your hand. Teaching our children that they must wash their hands after they go to the toilet because we know the fecal-oral route is a spread. Also washing your hands before you eat. And then we know that this virus actually enters the body through the eyes, nose, and mouth. So teaching our children and our community members not to touch the face unnecessarily. So I think, I do understand the cases are increasing, but I think it's about learning not to propagate the illness, the transmission of the illness. And education is the way we're going to be able to manage that.
So from what you described by way of the infection control strategies, it's literally going back to the basics that we used to keep COVID under control.
Absolutely, Bridget. I think with the routes of transmission, I think we do need to do basic infection control. And then the other things we do need to do is avoiding close contact with somebody that you see is ill. And this could also be sharing of utensils, toothbrushes, and then cleaning, disinfecting objects that have been exposed to the viruses. And in our schools and our creches, it's usually the doorknobs, the table surfaces, toys, stationery. So it's basic disinfecting of those. And then you're absolutely right, Bridget. It goes back to just basic infection control.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the early symptoms, Dr. Sophia, that parents should be looking out for? And when should parents then go out and consult a doctor?
Okay, so the first things you're going to see are your early signs of flu-like symptoms. The parents will notice a fever initially. Then a child might complain of having a sore throat because one of the classical symptoms of hand, foot, and mouth disease is blisters or ulcers in the mouth and the mucous membranes and in the throat. And a child might complain that eating, swallowing, or drinking fluids is a bit painful. With the young children, parents and caregivers need to look out for tiredness or an irritable child. So a child that's not playing and not happy generally alerts us to the fact that they're not feeling well, but they obviously can't verbalize to us that they're not feeling great. And then a couple of days after that, Bridget, some of the kids might actually develop blisters or sort of lesions on their hands and soles, red lesions, and that's where it gets its name, hand, foot, and mouth disease from. When to consult a doctor? Of course, if you have a very young child, so younger than 6 months, if you have very severe symptoms, so fever lasting more than 3 days, or within the 7 to 10 days, your symptoms have not gone away, definitely consult a doctor. Or if your child is having so much of pain that they're not able to eat or drink, we worry about dehydration. So then in that case, you must consult a doctor. Adults, older children, if you have any comorbid, which means other chronic medical illnesses, or anything that suppresses your immune system, then we advise that you do seek medical care.
Yeah.
Having said that, Bridget, if a parent is concerned that their child is not well, there's nothing stopping you from consulting. And the mainstay of treatment is symptomatic, Bridget.
I see. I want us to take a quick break in just a matter of moments, and then we'll come back to our conversation around this, because I also want to talk exactly that, treatment and perhaps vaccination, if there is vaccination for hand, foot and mouth disease. And we saw that obviously in Durban. The cases surged from 36 to over 117 overnight. And so far, from what I understand, the infection is primarily occurring in schools and daycare centers across the regions of Phoenix and Greenwood Park, as well as Umhlanga. But of course, it could be spreading in other places as well. And this is just one of those cautionary conversations so that we have the right kind of information from the right kind of medical experts. Let's take a quick break and then we'll be back on the other side.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than you microwaving your leftovers. Realizing they're still cold? Giving them a second chance. Realizing they're still cold? And eating them anyway. Because you've already committed to it. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Reigning African champions Banyana Banyana are gearing up to defend their WAFCON title in Morocco. Dr. Ellis and the girls want to deny neighbors Lesotho a moment to shine. But Mehaladito believe their game plan is too great to stop. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Lesotho, on Saturday, 22 February at 12:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Mangaung Metro Municipality is hosting an investment summit to bring investment to Bloemfontein. The summit will take place on 19 and 20 February at the City Hall and aims to bring together different economic role players from across the country and abroad. To be part of the summit or for more info, call 073 184 8972 or send an email to summit@mangaung.co.za. Mangaung, at the heart of it all.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with Dr. Sophia Umar, who's a medical officer at the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, and we're trying to get a better understanding of the hand, foot, and mouth disease outbreak that is right now confined to schools in KZN, affecting schools in certain regions of KZN. And there's been an escalation in numbers of infections, and the Provincial Health Department has initiated screening programs in affected schools and communities. They've also emphasized the importance of hygiene and ensuring that parents know to keep symptomatic children at home in order to curb further transmission. But Dr. Sophia, as well as the representatives from the KZN Health Department and Department of Basic Education, say there's no real cause for alarm and panic at the moment. We just need to arm ourselves with all the necessary information. And as Dr. Sophia has reiterated, this is a self-limited virus infection, and it's generally mild. It runs its course over a couple of days. And of course, it's all about good hygiene. So wash your hands, make sure you wash your hands the way that we've been taught, in between the fingers and under the nails, and, scrub thoroughly for a good 20 seconds at minimum. Be sure to cough into your elbow and not into your hands or the open air. Wash your hands after the loo. And be sure also not to just willy-nilly be touching your face unnecessarily, which I think is something so many of us do without even realizing that we're doing it. Dr. Sophia, let's talk about perhaps the possible treatment and if there is a vaccine against hand, foot, and mouth disease.
Sure, Bridget. So regarding the management, there's no vaccine. It is a viral illness. So as you rightly said, it will run its course and our immune system will help with that. And we are currently treating it symptomatically. So based on some of the symptoms that I discussed earlier, if a pupil or your child has fever, then we're going to treat it symptomatically. And this goes back also again to our basics. So it's using over-the-counter medication like paracetamol, educating parents, educators about removing sort of layers of the clothing to keep the child cool, tepid sponging. So those are your basic initiatives that you can take for a fever. When it comes to dehydration, we know that it is a painful illness because it's the lesions in the mouth. So we need to encourage food, fluid intake. So, you might want to encourage soft foods like yogurt, custard, jelly, soup. So those are just a few examples because it's difficult to swallow and to eat, but we need to ensure that the eating and drinking is happening. Like any other viral illness, lots of rest. With pain, again, things like paracetamol are going to come in very handy, and over-the-counter mouth preparations can also be used in these young children. And then again, coming back to hand washing, disinfecting surfaces. So that's our mainstay of treatment for hand, foot, and mouth disease.
Yeah. And if you are at home, just by way of maybe final advice from your end, if you are a parent at home with a little one that is showing symptoms of hand, foot, and mouth disease, and, over-the-counter meds and, of course, all the appropriate infection control strategies, and should we also be taking care of the environment, just making sure that everything in and around the house is clean and up to standard so that there's no reoccurrence of infection or maybe possibility of now infecting the siblings and the cousins and everyone else who comes into contact with the household?
Absolutely, Bridget. Children, unfortunately, they do love sneezing, coughing into their hands, and then they're touching sort of shared objects. So as I had mentioned previously, it's disinfecting very high traffic areas. So your door handles, table surfaces, cleaning your utensils, cutlery, crockery very well, ensuring that your child knows this is his toothbrush and not mistakenly taking his sick brother or sister's toothbrush. So yes, definitely as a household, just to continue with the hand washing and disinfecting of those high traffic surface areas. And within 7 to 10 days, with mild illness we should be symptom-free from it.
Wonderful. Dr. Sophia Uma, we appreciate the time with you this afternoon. And hopefully, mom and dads, if you are listening, we have managed to ease some of your worry and concern, and you've gotten all the necessary tips and what to do's from the doctor should you find that your little one is exhibiting symptoms of this hand, foot, and mouth disease outbreak. It's just gone 2:30. Good time for us to catch up with the headlines.
Thanks, Bridget. And your news making headlines for this hour. KZN Health MEC Noma Kukusimelani has expressed concern over the rapid spread of the hand, foot and mouth disease in the province. By this morning, the number of cases in the province has increased to 195, with 147 in the Durban metro. In other news, the official unemployment rate has decreased to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024 from 32.9% in the third quarter. And lastly, looking further afield, the Israeli military says it's keeping troops at 5 southern Lebanese posts despite today's withdrawal deadline. I'll be back at the top of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
SABC Education, in partnership with the Department of Health and Ilifa Labantwana, bring you episode 12 of the Satu When Your Child is Sick with Diarrhea.
Say and say, side by side.
Singama Africa, Kenya, you, Tina. Singama Africa Kenya Tina Singama Africa Kenya Tina
I just want to sleep. And my feet are still sore from work yesterday.
Maybe I could give your feet a little rabanyana to help you relax, my love.
Thanks, Sakumzi, but I must just get to work.
You're always tired. When do we, have time for us, baby?
I'm juggling work, home, everything. It's not easy.
But Joyce, when will we have time to try for a baby? I would love that.
Oh, Sakumzi, we can't keep repeating this very same argument. I have enough on my plate.
But Joyce, it's important. We need to start thinking about our family. We're not growing any younger. If we wait any longer, the age gap between Tabi and her little brother will be too big.
Stop with this little brother now.
But it's what I need, Joyce.
Do you want to know what I need?
What, Map?
I need space, Sakumzi. I can't keep having this very same fight all the time. You're like a broken record.
Space? What do you mean by that?
I think you'll have to go sleep on the couch tonight until you cool off.
Hold it now. I'm not the one who's angry.
It doesn't matter, but you're not sleeping in this bed tonight.
I don't get it, Joyce.
That's why you need some space so that you can go and figure things out.
We're doing fine, Anele.
Good. I was hoping to come home this weekend, but it's almost tax season and we have a lot of work piling up.
It's fine.
Can I see my little baby girl, please?
Sure. Hold on.
Hello, Dada. Little angel. I'm so sorry I can't make it this weekend, but Dada will make it up to you and Mama, okay? Why is she crying? Is she hungry?
I don't think so. I just fed her. Oh no, my baby. You made a big mess in your nappy. And it's runny.
What kind of food did you give her, Kanya?
What I always give her.
Well, you better see to it that she gets better. I'm sorry, but I must go.
Oh no, did I give her bad food? Nespeliswa, let me call her. Oh.
Hello?
Hello, Nespeliswa. It's Kanya. Amanda is crying and she seems to have diarrhea. She seems very weak. What should I do?
Hello? My aunt forgot her phone at home. It's Lupomzo speaking.
What must I do?
Let me check my textbook.
No, rather not. I can't take any chances. I need professional medical advice.
Yes, and I'm studying social work.
No, I'm not going to risk it.
Maybe you should avoid dairy products and stick to clear fluids for now.
None of this is going to help. I need medical treatment for my daughter. I'm taking her to the clinic right now. Nespeliswa, what should I do? I'm so worried about Amanda.
First, let's calm down. Diarrhea in children can be serious, but it's treatable. When did it start?
An hour or so. You know, I thought I could manage. Lupom's also gave me some advice. I didn't know it would get this bad.
Oh, Lupumzo should have never given you medical advice. She's not a health worker. Diarrhea needs proper care.
She thought she was helping.
Well, she must learn not to play doctor. Kanya, For diarrhea, it is important to maintain hydration. I've given her some hydration solution now. There is a hydration solution recipe if you are interested.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you can make it yourself at home.
Yes, please, I will.
Okay. Now make sure you follow these instructions very carefully. This rehydration drinks helps to replace the salt and important minerals in the child's body and blood. Take 1 liter of water. Preferably boil the water for about 5 minutes and let it cool. Add half teaspoon of salt and then add 8 flat teaspoons of sugar. Then mix and shake well. Okay? Give the child a teaspoon of this mixture every 5 minutes. Then monitor her closely and give her enough water.
I understand, Nespiriso. I'll follow your advice.
It's okay to ask for help. You know that. We're here to support you and Amanda. Let's focus on getting her better.
But how did she get the diarrhea?
Diarrhea is very common and is actually a major cause of death in children.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know it can lead to death.
It happens more in summer months when it's hot. Food gets off or rotten easily, and there are many flies.
What should I do if it happens again?
Diarrhea is when a young child has many water stools and poos, very frequently during the day and night. So the baby or young child only has a small body, so that this means she loses the water and salt out of her body very quickly. And unless this is stopped, the young child becomes dehydrated and can die. It is the dehydration that kills the babies and small children.
So that is why the child must stay hydrated.
Exactly. If the diarrhea gets worse or continues for 24 hours, get immediate medical attention at the clinic or a doctor.
So I did the right thing to come here.
Yeah, yes, you did.
Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa
Join us again on Thursday as we sit down with an expert at 2:30 to further discuss what to do when your child is sick with diarrhea right here on SAFM.
Side by side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Is there then a need and a calling for Afrikaners, the majority of Afrikaners who are not part of AfriForum and Solidarity, to now amplify their voice like you do now, to say they have their opinion, but they're not one of us, they don't speak for us?
Yes, absolutely. We need to stand up and be counted. AfriForum has its own news media, Pretoria FM and Marula Media and all that kind of thing, and they're entitled to it. But the voice of the silent majority is not being heard. We are being railroaded by AfriForum. They're an unelected group of Afrikaner nationalists. I am not an Afrikaner nationalist. Most Afrikaners are not ethnic nationalists. And we need to stand up and say, ons is nie almal so nie.
Max Dupriya.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As we wrap up the final moments of the show, we're still sticking to the theme of health and conversations around health. And in honor of World Cancer Day, which was observed globally on the 4th of February, Novartis, which is a leading global healthcare company, donated a breast health clinic to Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Academic Hospital. And we are in conversation now with the country president of Novartis SA, Rachel O'Neill. How are you doing this afternoon, Rachel?
I'm great, thanks. It's lovely to be with you.
Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. Let's talk about this because nearly 84% of South Africa's population relies on the public health care sector, and we know how sort of inundated the oncology sector of public health has been in recent years.
You're absolutely right. 85% of people are treated in the public sector and the resources are really limited. Actually, we see huge disparities in healthcare between public and private sector because despite only 15% of people being in the private sector, the spend is roughly equal. And it really shows up when you talk about breast cancer. We see enormous differences in the incidence of breast cancer, but more importantly on the outcomes. So 1 in 13 white women will experience breast cancer in their life. 1 in 81 black women will experience breast cancer. But actually, that's just not really a true statistic. It's so impacted by the availability of screening, of diagnosis, of being able to help patients, particularly who come from a more marginalized community, to access care quickly. What we see globally is that the difference between black and white women is only 5%, nowhere near so big as we see in South Africa. But actually the risk of death, mortality, is much, much higher in the black community. That's why it's so important that we look at how do you shore up public services? How do you make sure that people from any part of South Africa are equally able to access care, screening, diagnosis, and treatment?
And this is necessary. Given what you've just shared with us from a statistical data perspective, this partnership between Novartis and, of course, the Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Academic Hospital becomes a very necessary one that's speaking to the sort of public-private partnerships and how they can contribute to addressing healthcare disparities in the country.
Exactly right. We feel that the private sector has a huge role to play in supporting services in the public sector. As a company, we make medicines. Our mission is to reimagine what's possible in the healthcare space. And particularly here in South Africa, we want to reimagine how medicines get to patients in the first place. Working in a public-private partnership allows us to bring the stakeholders and thought leaders together across the healthcare system, so that we can really understand the barriers that deny patients great health care, systematically work through those barriers, and make sure that the improvements we make are sustainable, that they outlast the original investment.
Speaking of those barriers, as a stakeholder in the space, what has been identified and what are some of the conversations in as far as solutions, perhaps whether targeting, various cancer interventions or, of course, other areas of diagnosis?
It's a great question because, of course, the answer isn't straightforward. There are many factors. But particularly, the number one thing we could fix is how late most patients present. 75% of women with breast cancer present late, stage 3, stage 4, when the cancer has already started to spread through their body. The journey, the mountain that those women have to climb to find a really great quality of life is so much more significant than if that cancer had been detected early. Now, that's partly due to health inequalities, due to the lack of availability of screening or the time taken to get a diagnosis. But it's also lack of access to education, stigma, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding what that is. So in addition to working with groups like Charlotte Nakeke to create a great breast health unit, we also try to do more to educate patients, how to be more breast aware, how to self-check, how to identify things that might not be quite right, that you want to get checked out, because the earlier you seek treatment, the better your prognosis.
Mm. And Rachel, if we had to talk about this specific partnership as well, let's talk about the donation of the breast health clinic by Novartis, obviously, to the hospital. As you say, that you want to partner in order to create a better breast health unit within the facility. And let's talk about some of the broader goals, that this unit will address in terms of maybe reducing inequalities in healthcare and ensuring that there's fair treatment for all.
Yeah, this is such a great project for this, because this breast health unit specifically addresses the three elements of the Presidential Compact for Healthcare, as set out by President Ramaphosa. It looks at skills and capability building. How do you bring through the next generation of doctors? How do you train up nurses so that they're much better able to provide care for their patients? It also talks to data surveillance. How do you start to capture data to flow into databases so that you can start to mine that data for information that informs policy, knowing exactly where to run your screening programs, which kinds of women are most at risk, which treatment approaches make most sense, how to use your healthcare budget most efficiently to support the best number of patients. And thirdly, it directly supports infrastructure development. I'm sure many of your listeners will know about the fire in Charlotte Nakeke Hospital some years ago, which means that several specialties are all a little bit jumbled together. It's very hard for patients to access the care they need, and particularly to do that with dignity and space. So this space, this breast health unit, gives patients dignity, particularly for those who are uncomfortable talking about breast cancer because of some fear of stigma. But it also allows the specialty they need to be all in one place, so they are quickly seen by all the relevant members of their clinical team, meaning they can get the care they need in one hit. It really speaks to sustainable healthcare for the future.
And in fact, that fire in, I think it was 2021 that affected the hospital. The hospital has since not recovered fully by way of operations. And considering the fact that it's one of the largest hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere, and we know all the other sort of dynamics that come into play in South Africa. So it services not just citizens of the country as well, but, citizens of neighboring countries who come here to seek medical intervention and medical expertise. What do you anticipate that the clinic will, or rather the impact that you anticipate that the clinic will have, particularly on breast cancer patients? I mean, you talk about quality care, quality health care, which is such a necessity, but also bringing dignity back to women who are going through a very life-changing, sometimes even devastating diagnosis.
I think you've summarized it beautifully. Our intention is that the clinic does all of those things. It is a place for women to get great quality care, but also for their carers and supporters to access information and knowledge. But I think it's more than that. And you're right when you talk about the importance of Charlotte Nakeke, not just within Gauteng, not just within South Africa, but within the entire region. And I think when you look at how long it's been since the fire and how it's still affecting the good running of this hospital, and the staff there are fantastic. They work so hard every day to help patients. You realize that sometimes we need to find other solutions. You can't always wait and expect for a government authority to figure out how to fix some of these problems. Calamities happen. No one plans in their budget the rebuilding of a major hospital. And this is why I think having that flexibility to pull together groups who care, groups who want to make a difference, and groups who have funding makes such a difference. And I should say it wasn't only Novartis who funded this. Actually, a number of people played a role. Wits University were involved in making sure that the unit had water and electricity. Barbary Holdings co-funded the program out of their corporate social responsibility budget. A number of different groups have contributed somehow or other to making this happen. And I feel that's why it's sustainable. You could take this model at Charlotte and take it to other units where services for breast cancer are not good enough, or you could expand into other disease areas where more space and specialism is needed. I feel it's a sustainable model where you're not only creating space, but again, as I said, making sure you've got data that allows the health authorities to make much better decisions about where to prioritize the limited funds and budget that they have.
And that's the sort of the other point of interest, right? Is how does one scale up a program like this in keeping with sort of government's call for a government and private sector collaboration to further enhance the healthcare sector in its entirety, whether by way of providing care or support services to South Africans?
I agree. I think we've all had quite a wake-up call in the last couple of weeks as we've seen the shift in foreign aid policy in the US, which creates huge vulnerabilities across a number of sectors within South Africa, but particularly also in healthcare. And I think it's not a very nice lesson, but I think one of the lessons we can take from this is how do we make sure that those kinds of foreign investments or investments from other bodies that may be time limited are followed through with great policy and great infrastructure of our own, so that we are standing on our own 2 feet. And whilst you may take investments like that to help you to shift an agenda forwards, you're not relying on it for the sustainability of that agenda in the long term. And again, it's why we tried with this program to find multiple partners who could play with us, but a lot of those partners who were really entrenched in the healthcare system. So once the unit's there, it's self-managed, self-run, and sustainable.
Well, Rachel, listen, we hope that Novartis continues this incredible partnership and we see it spread out across other regions in the country. We appreciate the time with you this afternoon. That was Country President of Novartis SA, Rachel O'Neill, just walking us through this collaboration and partnership that they've got now with the Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Academic Hospital, where they've donated a breast health clinic to the facility in the hopes of creating a state-of-the-art breast health unit to service those patients who so rely on the services of one of the biggest hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere. That is how we wrap up our show this afternoon. Of course, a lot of eyes cast on everything that's unfolding in Pretoria around that Zanzu situation with Club Zanzu. And, of course, there's that very important meeting that was held in Cape Town with the African National Congress sitting down to reconfigure possibly Gauteng and KZN. I'm sure there'll be a lot of insights coming through from Ashraf this afternoon and some political analysts as well as some of our resident journalists that are keeping a keen eye on that, because it does affect not just obviously the party structures, but it affects you and I, particularly going into the 2026 local elections. And the big headline of the day, which is something that tomorrow we'll be dedicating a large portion of our show to. Jimmy is coming through for that special broadcast tomorrow ahead of the, of course, finance minister's budget speech. There's a lot of chatter right now from folks in the financial sectors about a possible VAT increase and, of course, a possible broader taxes increase. I don't know what that all entails, but this is why we have all the financial analysts and experts in that arena to walk us through it. But yes, that is anticipated tomorrow for that budget speech that is coming through from the minister in Cape Town. That's all the time that we have for you today. We are going to say goodbye to you with a little bit of Jonathan Butler, just to maybe ease the blood pressure just a little bit and get you into a good mood before Ashraf comes through. And he's going to be with you for more conversations on the National Pulse between 3 and 6.
La la la,
Top stories at 3. Economists welcome the decrease in the unemployment rate, and similarly concerned over the rise in cases of hand, foot and mouth disease. Good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipa. PwC senior economist Christy Viljoen says the decrease in the fourth quarter unemployment number is positive news. He warns, however, the economy needs to grow by 3% to create meaningful jobs. Stats SA's quarterly labour force survey has revealed that the official unemployment rate has decreased to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024 from the 32.9% in the third quarter. Viljoen says this number is bound to change in the first quarter of 2025 due to the seasonal job comings to the end of January.
That group of discouraged workers, it's basically people that are willing and able to work, but they've given up on finding a job. Several millions of them. Let's be honest, we are aware of these people. Many of them are very young, people that have never had a proper job, that will probably never have a proper job. And those are the people being failed by an economy that is just growing way too slowly. If we can get this economy growing by 2-3%, that's how we absorb more of those young people.
KZN Health MEC Nomakuku Simelane has expressed concern over the rapid spread of the hand, foot and mouth disease in the province. She is addressing the media in Durban. By this morning, the number of cases in the province increased to 195, with 147 in the Durban metro. Symptoms of hand, foot and mouth disease include blisters in the mouth and on the hands and feet in young children. Simelane elaborates.
Your vigilance, both as parents and as educators, is critical, but we need to do more. Every school, every home, and every community must take this outbreak seriously. To parents, please, if your child shows symptoms, do not send them to school. We want to emphasize this. If your child shows symptoms, do not send them to school. To the teachers, continue educating our children on hygiene and take extra precautions in your classrooms.
Staying in KZN, Action SA says it will write to the South African Human Rights Commission to intervene on what it calls a health crisis in the province. The party says this relates to concerns regarding medication and pharmaceutical stock levels at the province's healthcare facilities. This after the Provincial Health MEC conceded that the department was unable to pay its suppliers on time due to ongoing financial challenges. Speaking at a media briefing in KwaDukuza in north of Durban, Action SA Member of Parliament Dr. Jose Letlape says his party